One turn touchdowns, multiple rerolls, the 8-turn grind.
Ayli, shh. We have Blood Bowl to talk about. Welcome, everyone, to BBSPN, a Blood Bowl podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Ayli.
Hey, she did it.
I almost forgot there for a second. I'm like, who am I again?
Which guy am I? Which girl? Hello and welcome to BBSPN. We are going to talk about the state of the game. State of the game! State of the game! The state of the game.
State of the game.
Now, it's important to emphasize that Ayli and I are long-term league players. We don't play at tournaments yet. So a lot of the state of the game we're going to be talking about is more the state of league play and how it's changed or how it hasn't changed since 2016.
Yeah, we should probably actually talk about what exactly spurred this on.
Yeah.
So it was a thread on Twitter that I saw from Joe Hainstock, who plays a lot of tournament Blood Bowl and stuff. I think he's been NAF champion multiple times over, and he did this post on his blog. I'll go ahead and I'll link it in the description. About, generally speaking, that how he hadn't really played the new edition of Blood Bowl due to COVID and all this other stuff going on. And he finally got into a tournament, and this was generally his first thoughts on it. And I thought that it was extremely valuable. Obviously, tournament metagames and league metagames are very different, mostly in that league metas are determined by who shows up with what, and tournament metas are determined by what's good and what people decide, and then what people decide to show up with. So, not all of it carries over, but I think it's still important because I know a lot of people talked about like what the changes to this edition are going to be, and like when the leaks first came out, I think at this point it's safe to address that.
Yeah. At the same time, Ayli was... Sorry, did you want to...
No, go on.
Okay. At the same time, I was actually finishing up my first IRL league experience with the Amber Stout Cup here in the southern reaches of the World Edge Mountains. And we thought it pertinent to talk about my league experience and how it ties in to the post that Ayli just referenced. And we found, like, just after a short chat while we were making the script for this episode, like, there's a lot of parallels to league and tournament play, just from the play style, or rather how the play style has changed. And it's definitely worth mentioning. So a little rundown. The Amber Stout Cup is a smaller league. It was about 9 people. It was going to be 15, dropped down to 9. I brought my undead team, the Mordheim Meteorites, out to play. It's a team I've talked about at length before. It was a team that I planned to win. I planned not necessarily to metagame, but to give myself, in my opinion, the best shot to win the league. And I'll post the league and the composition of said league in there. What people brought were actually, like, there was a slew of different teams. I was really happy to see it because I was kind of afraid when we got into the league that I would see a lot of meta choices. Some of the players are a little bit were older, so maybe I didn't know like what their skill level was, but as it turns out, like, the skill level was everywhere. Like, I would say that almost every skill level was represented with these 9 teams. And I had a hell of a lot of fun. Spoiler alert. I got to the championship, played a 5-hour match against Dwarves and lost. But what the best part about that game is that I learned so much about what makes a Blood Bowl community last, or what makes a Blood Bowl community, for lack of a better term, attractive, is like, I guess it's with all hobbies, but like you have to find a group of people that you actually enjoy playing with. I feel like that is almost like finding a crop of good people is more important than whatever the fucking game you're playing, whatever game you're playing is.
Exactly.
I think Blood Bowl enhances that experience you have with those players, which is why I like playing it. But that's what it is. Now, before we go further into my league experience, there are a couple things I need to mention. We did have home rules. I'm hoping to, at some point, play a league where we just play it from the book. Not because I feel like the home rules were broken, but more that I feel like I need to have that test. That what's the scientific term? Where you want
experiment?
Well, not experiment, like where you're trying to get your base result, or like the result you have.
Control.
Your control. I want to have a control league so I know what I want to change. Because going into a league that already had home rules, I'm still torn. Granted, the rules did change on having home rules in a league just yet. But I played with them. I mean, they're still a fun time. But the biggest changes, just off the top of my head, the player who got the most SPP during a match was automatically the MVP, and they could get MVP consecutively. So,
yeah, that's a huge hello, War Dancers.
Yeah, there was to give some recompense. The problems that you could see with that were very apparent by the end of the league. The trade-off with that was that it was kind of hilarious because you could put hits on players. So we just had these massive... Someone said that their entire treasury could be taken if they killed one of the human nobility players. I can't remember his name.
Oh, this is peak Blood Bowl already, though, is the thing. You turned it on its head, but it's still peak Blood Bowl here. There's a fucking hit racketeering circle going on in the middle of this Blood Bowl league.
Yeah, unfortunately, like, I don't think any bribes got collected, but what we did have was some of the beefiest players I have ever seen in a Blood Bowl so far. We had a strength 4 move at 9, blodge, war dancer. My ghoul had freaking block, sprint, sure hands, and sure feet. So he was just a step below being a legend, I believe.
I think you need 6, so it's a couple steps.
Yeah, and then there was a death roller with a bunch of crap and block. It was... The term front loading comes to mind. Every team... We had so many, we had these basic teams, and then just a Chungus Among Us with every single team. And it was, I don't even know how to really describe it. It was kind of like having your own star player to put on the pitch each time. Like, that was the character that you focused on.
It was like high school. It was like high school gym, elementary school gym class, where it's like there's 2 or 3 people who are just naturally very athletic, and then there's just a bunch of other random people. So it's about who gets the 1 or 2 people who are good at who are actually good at whatever sport you're playing.
You have that one kid that hit maturity way too early, and to counterbalance it, your gym teacher joins in. It just becomes an arms race. That's essentially what it was.
You always wanted the 10-year-old who shaves on your gym class team.
Yeah. So, going a little bit further into... where am I? I'm losing myself. The other big rule that was changed was overtime. Specifically, overtime in championship matches. Regular season matches, you could end in a tie, so there was no overtime rules. So, and this was changed actually in the championship game because I complained about it because, as is normally in my life, business or life, me being there usually ends up in the changing of rules. I am the safety meeting.
This is concerning considering your line of work.
Exactly. So overtime changed so that when overtime would normally happen, it would become a continuation of the last drive. Now, the original rules that they wanted to go with is that, you just played from turn 16 on until someone scored. I was very fervent that we had at least another kickoff.
Yeah.
And to compromise with that, whoever had the ball during the last turn of the drive received the ball again.
Yeah.
That way, the defending player gets some of their teammates back that were knocked out, and the player doesn't feel gypped, having ball control for the last drive.
I guess. I mean, like, that's one of those rules where, to me, it's like, okay, if you implement this, like, this thing where there's not a kickoff, you defeat the entire purpose of the defense. Like, like now your defense has to play a very different game, and your offense has to kind of play the same game. So it's like, like I don't quite understand.
There's a part of me.
I get what it's trying to do. I don't think it does any of those things.
I want to do another kickoff. My caveat is that I would like a coin flip still. I would like, just like in regular football, the coin flip, someone receives, whoever scores first gets it. The only problem is that, as I realized with that rules change, is that matches can last an absurd amount of time. And just having a simple rule where someone receives the ball, who has the ball receives the ball and continues on with their drive may make it shorter. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
But we'll see. Like the Liga, I'll be doing Amber Stout the next time it comes around, so we'll see how that changes. We may not even use that overtime rule at all. Yeah. But who knows? So yeah, as I went into the league, I mean, I'll show my team and how I developed it. It was a little odd because I had a skeleton with kick.
I mean, that could be a play style choice.
That wasn't a random skill, by the way.
That wasn't a random. You picked that? Okay,
Yeah,
well, at this point, now we're talking about play style choice instead. I don't think that's weird.
Yeah. If you know me, there are two things that I focus around. Is I hate negative traits and I love ball control.
Yeah.
And that's why I play Undead, is simply so I can rely on my teammates. But as it turns out, that doesn't matter too much because the Human Renegade team was destroying me by ignoring their racism and doing one-turn touchdowns.
Chaos Renegade. I'm just happy that somebody showed up with Chaos Renegades. Like, there's always those like 2 or 3 people in a league where like you see what team they roll up in and you're like, I immediately want to get a drink with you. And for me, it's the Chaos Renegade players and the Old World Alliance players where it's like, oh, no. You are my kin now.
Brothers
of the bull.
But let's just take a dive into team development. My team development skills are pretty much just follow, get block. I shouldn't have given that skeleton kick, but I really didn't just want to have a dirty player undead team because I don't know. There's a part of me, there's just like a small section of my brain that hates going with picks people expect. So I went with kick. But the rest of the development went as follows. I gave my one mummy brawler and guard, and I don't think brawler is the choice. I should have taken brawler and break tackle because getting him in the situations where he could use guard was more important than having him re-roll his both downs, because he was usually my last punch. And usually his last punch was at least a 3-die. But, and my blitzers were going to be my ball takers, so I gave both of them strip ball and tackle. Granted, I can't stress enough how hard it was to get at least these skills on there, because if they weren't scoring touchdowns, the odds are they weren't going to get MVP, and if they didn't get MVP, they weren't going to get these skills. So there was a lot of times where I would stop my goal from the end zone and desperately try to do a handoff to my white just so he could score. So, yeah. But what do you think, Kylie? What do you think team development revolves around now? And like, where do you think people are going to?
So this is a hard one because I think team develop, like the known, so there's two different things at play here. The first one is that, like, what skills are you actually taking? I think across the board for teams is by and large the same. I mean, I think that the only like major changes there is that more teams are getting blocked more often from players that wouldn't normally get it because they're choosing to save that much SPP. And more players are, sorry, I should say, and then, okay, so words are hard. I'm trying to differentiate between players and coaches here. More players are also getting sneaky get, because sneaky get is really, really good on foulers. And I think that's like a lot of big guys are more consistently getting block. Otherwise, I think there is, in terms of like how you set up your team development by like what your 1000 TV looks like, I think there is still a very strong emphasis on having the best team out the gate. I think that the dedicated fans like idea has not played out the way people thought it was going to. I will be very, very blunt and say that I am still high on dedicated fans. I think that taking some is almost always a good play, especially on the teams that you don't have to sacrifice a positional for it necessarily. But the way that you're building your teams at 1000 TV, I think, kind of ties into a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to get into. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We'll pick that back up later.
Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to talk to you about specifically is that with this new edition, we now have a direct route to get secondaries and stat boosts. It's not a dice roll anymore. Do you think that there are teams or positionals that should save up for those secondaries and stat boosts if they can get them?
Yeah, for sure. Quite bluntly, on any human variant team, a lineman that already has like block should probably start saving for something. I personally am a fan of going like block tackle on a couple, just because tackle is useful to have. But after that, it's like you're saving for guard. You know, you're saving for guard. You might be saving for a stat boost. I think there are arguments for both. I think guard is probably more impactful in this edition than a stat boost. So like, yeah, just every like human variant team can guard wall pretty effectively. I think, oh geez, like let's get into it. Like, Witch Elves can guarantee Mighty Blow now, and they're not hard to feed touchdowns to. Like that's pretty scary. Jeez, like
thinking like you could take, like say you have a human team, you could take, and you're against elves. What about taking like diving tackle?
I think so. The secondary. So this is actually going to go into a little bit about this post here, and I'm trying to find exactly where it is. What are the?
What was the post? Sorry, go ahead.
Post by Oh my gosh! My name just like freaking left. Joe Manji. Yeah, Jesus.
Joe Manji.
I was trying to find where it was. Where there was. It felt like, at least to me, that utility skills have lost a lot of their value. You know, before in a league, you know, you could have a player with a utility skill like diving tackle. I mean, diving tackle wasn't very common just because, agility access wasn't that common. And when you got doubles, you weren't taking diving tackle, you were still taking guard, right? So, but, having a player with kick, a player with kick, a second player with sure hands, a player, who has like block tackle, and then like a player that has block whatever, was much more common. And I'm starting to think that by giving us access to everything, what's actually going on is that they've narrowed our choices, because this is still a game where there are some skills that are obviously the best. I mean, we're not Necromunda. We're not, at the point where basically everybody either always plays with Overseer, or those campaigns rule out Overseer because it's like so obviously the best skill, it breaks the game in two. We're not at that point yet. I don't think we ever will be, but it is true that it's like, well, why would I get anything else when I could just get guard or sneaky kid?
Yeah.
Like those are the two best skills in the game probably. So it's like,
so what you're saying is like the utility skills are still too suboptimal to be contending choices against skills that are more obvious, or skills that people have chosen before because they are pretty much the best skill in those skill brackets, like guard, dodge.
Yeah, and I'm not
block,
saying that people are like never gonna take tackle. Like, no, tackle is still incredible. Tackle is still very, very good. But what I am saying is that you're no longer gonna have one-off utility skills on a couple of players. I don't think that's where this is trending. And I wouldn't call tackle necessarily a utility skill either. I think it's a core skill for most players. But it is true that, or I should say, like, it's a core skill in like most lineman positionals. But what I will say is there are going to be a lot of people who still save up for those secondaries, for guard and for sneaky get, to have better blocks more consistently, and to have a incredible positioning game while being able to get removals. And I think that that's where we're trending towards right now, is that I think that is the game now. I think the game is revolving around, at least in leagues, I think the game is going to start to revolve around generating SPP to get to, save up for those skills. And I'm starting to wonder if that's what it revolves around or not. I don't think you have to. I think you can be very successful without it. I think it's an uphill climb, and it requires you to be a much better coach than the rest of the players in your league. But I think it's still doable.
Yeah. That's all very solid points. But another thing and this is a really poor segue, but I'm going to do it anyway. But another thing we have to focus on is like, another thing to understand about your league is not how the other coaches develop, but how the other coaches play. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that my ideal league is people who are competitive but social.
Exactly.
Like there's still a lot of talking. I want to know about your day. I want to know about what you're doing, but I also want a Blood Bowl game to happen. People find it weird that, well, not people. A lot of my league mates found it weird that I would sit down at the Blood Bowl table, have a couple of tall boys next to me, and they're all seltzer water because I don't drink. But that's like, I got along with those folks quite well, and I had the opportunity to interview Alex, the league commissioner for Amber Stout, and I wanted to bounce off a couple questions off him, how the league went, and just kind of bounce like what his opinion is not against ours, but like how we feel about it. I'm just going to run down these questions, so give me a second. Here we are. So a few things to know about Alex. He's ran Blood Bowl games since the 2016 version, but I think he also has experience with older versions, just not as much, or at least not in terms of a league. He's been to the Las Vegas Open before, but he hasn't participated. I believe he's been in the LVO competitively in 40K. So he does have good connections with some of the people who do podcasts and some of the streams over in that, or the people who do production for the LVO. He's a very nice guy. He's a very charming guy, and when you play with him, if you take too long with his terms, he's like, you can always concede.
To answer the question about older editions, it does say in one of his answers this that he does mention the Living Rulebook 6, which is like the de facto way Blood Bowl was played before it got republished in 2016. So yeah, he does have a lot of experience with older editions as well.
So I'm gonna go. Yeah, so I'm just gonna hit him with like about 10 questions. Some of them are just what I explained before, what he does, but I asked him, like, what were your expectations for the season? At that point, like, when I was talking to him, I didn't know him, like, too well. I didn't even know that Amber Stout existed until I started searching it on, like, Facebook groups, because I was really desperate trying to find if there was actually a league in Utah. And I think there's actually 2.
Oh.
But, yeah. But, God, and I just dossed myself. But,
we broke the illusion.
We broke some fucking illusion.
But if Utah's the world's edge mountains, I'm all the way in like fucking Cathay. Like,
yeah, exactly. So I asked him what was his expectations for the season, and where were those expectations met? He was really hoping that someone would beat our dwarf player because he was the reigning champion, and like, and I'm try not to insult him, but like. There were times where he would go onto our Facebook group page and post like basically just BM the teams and like a 2-minute rant about how the championship trophy was going to stay at his house, and like our whole goal was like we have to win so we don't get yet another BM post about how we all suck. But it happened anyway.
Spoiler alert. He won.
Spoiler alert. He won. He just what Alex wanted is that, everyone stayed committed and played their games. And most of us did. The people who played their first 2 games, I believe, went the whole distance, which is really good to hear. And I mean, like, not all of us lived close to each other. I had to travel down to an area south of here, almost 45 minutes, 50 minutes away. And not to date this video, but gas was incredibly expensive. So I hope to have something a little bit local, closer locally at some point. Still in the Amber Stout Cup, but like a different division. But that's all he wanted was, people to see motivated to play, and they were. I mean, it was incredible how fluid the communication was. And the other question I asked was like, what were your expectations for your team? His team was the not the Human Renegades, Chaos Renegades. And would you do anything differently? And his answer is what I imagine a lot of Chaos Renegades players have. It's like they don't know what to expect. Alex is a very long time orc player. And he also played goblins from time to time. But apparently he listened to the Bonehead podcast about like all the mixed teams that came in, Chaos Renegades being one of them, and he was sold on it immediately because you could take 3 big guys. Not so much the Red Ogre, as he will commonly tell, because he thinks the Red Ogre is, I'm pretty sure I'm safely the quote here, a huge piece of shit. But the other big guys were solid, and so long as you don't roll racism, they seem to work. I asked him who his favorite player was on the team, and he has a goblin called Kill Me! !
Gotta get the exclamation point.
Yeah. He really wanted to make him 2-headed. so he could, go with the normal mutation goblin route. But Kilme was the power player. He was the one turner, and it worked. Like, I think Kilme got 2 touchdowns on me just from throw teammate. He expected Kilme naturally to die a lot, but he was like, I mean, this goblin took a lot of beatings because people were getting, privy to the fact that this was Alex's play of the one-turn touchdown throw teammate. So they tried to foul him. They tried to block Kilme and throw. He landed, I think, the majority of his throw teammates, and the worst he ever got was an MNG. So I think he was the most developed player on that team. I asked him, now that you have some players that, perform well, what about the coaches? Were there any coaches that really surprised you? I asked him, how his team performed in general, the Chaos Renegades. And he's just like, everyone performed, as a team that's mostly linemen and 3 big guys would. Just all right. He did get far. I think I'm going to have to bring up the tournament results. I think Alex got 5th or 6th, which, I mean, we had a really, really close league all around. So it was pretty mid tier, considering that we had a lot of stronger teams like Dark Elves, Dwarves, Undead, Human Nobility, that and then I got to a bit of the deeper questions. I asked straight out, like, are leagues harder to manage or easier to manage with the 2020 rule set? And he was honest with me and said that he preferred the 2016 rules. He liked the SPP system of those rules better because it was easier to audit your teams when it came to inflicting casualties and scoring touchdowns. He thinks that the 2020 system relies a little too heavily on the honor system, which is something I actually want to talk to you, Ayli, at some point. Like, we used... I can't remember what the program is called, but Ayli and I, for a league that we hosted with Tabletop Simulator, we used a digital recording system made by a couple of very dedicated programmers in South America. I can't remember what the heck it's called off the top of my head.
Through it right now.
Yeah, but it is specifically made for Blood Bowl, and it works incredibly well. And I'm trying to see if I can utilize that for the next season. I'm talking with Alex about it, on and off about it. But, like, he said that, this kind of plays back into having good coaches, because he thinks that it relied a whole lot on the honor system, but he had, like, the way that we were able to record our teams and how we developed, like, he had a lot of faith in us. And since he felt like the coaches were very trustworthy, relying so heavily on the honor system didn't bother him. But, it is still an honor system, so there is still that possibility of abuse, either accidentally or otherwise. So, and before I get ahead of myself, for those who are in the Amber Stout Cup, Alex wants to thank you all for your time and for being such honorable players. I'm trying not to name drop anybody else, just in case we get DOSed or someone feels like DOSing a Blood Bowl channel with 70 subscribers.
But we're not good enough for you.
My next question was about what homebrew rules that we applied to, and I've already mentioned that. What I will say is the changes to the rules I just mentioned, we went away from that MVP system and went to the choose 3 and you can't have a consecutively MVP system, which I prefer more. I feel like it'll help with team development, but we'll see.
I found it, by the way.
Oh, you found it? What's it called?
it was torplay.net.
Torplay, yes, torplay.net. If you guys want a digital system it takes just a little bit of fine tuning, but something that really accurately records Blood Bowl matches, even through like pre-match and post-match sequences, get that app. It's a lifesaver. I highly recommend it over the paper recording system, or even BattleScribe, to be honest. But yeah, going back into the interview, I asked him, what other leagues do we plan on doing, and we plan on doing in the future? And he wants to do a stunty league, and I am very hyped for a stunty league. I don't know if I'll have time to do it, but that sounds like a lot of fun. This is another league that's happening. Alex himself isn't hosting it, but someone from the league is the Chaos Cup, which I'm in right now. And it's, as the name implies, been a chaotic mess, but in a very good way. For instance, the dwarf player that I keep mentioning, he just lost to one of our newest players who played Necromantic.
Yes.
So
I don't know this person, but yes.
And it's just been nonstop chaos. Like, I really don't know. I have to actually play Alex next in that league. I really don't know what the heck's going to happen, because it's just a straight single elim championship style, so anything could indeed happen. We're also going to have not a rookie league, but a rookie division for the next Amber Stout, which I look forward to, because this league displayed a lot of the good side of Blood Bowl to some of the LGSs in the area, or rather one LGS in particular. So it looks like we'll actually have a crop for the rookie division, and I'm really excited for that. I cannot wait. I could become that old codger that teaches Blood Bowl. I hope. I pray. And then, the last question was like, how do you feel about the current state of Blood Bowl? And he said that the reason, like, he loves it, but mostly because he's seen a whole lot more play from this edition than he has seen with 2016 or the Living Rulebook 6. I'm not sure, maybe if it's just post Nurgle's Rot or something of that caliber, but like, we've definitely gotten more play out of the 2020 rulebook than we have with any of the rules prior in this area. Some of the changes he didn't like in particular is that he's a huge fan of the illegal procedure rule. And getting used to the new passing system took him a minute. I mean, I think the passing system kind of confuses everybody at some point, because there's just so many specific rules. But I mean, it's just something you have to get used to, especially since, passing is a bit of a rarity. And something that I also struggle with is, declaring stuff before they happen. Like blitzes, passing, handoff, pickups. That's going to take some getting used to. It's gotten a little bit more fluid now, but I can still see myself messing it up down the line. But like Alex said, he loves playing Blood Bowl, and more importantly, he's proud that he's passing it on to his sons and his nephew, who have all played with, and they're all very enjoyable. So hopefully there's, a bright Blood Bowl future ahead of us in that league. And if you find yourself in Southern Utah, you could go look up the Amber Stout Cup. It's on Facebook. I'm not going to give any more details, but you can look it up.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. And yeah. So I wanted to bounce that off of you, Ayli. Do you feel like do you agree with some of his opinions on the game, or do you feel like the state of Blood Bowl is taking a different route?
I think most of this is pretty straightforward. What I will say is, it's very easy to implement something where you don't have to rely on an honor system. You know,
Yeah.
make both players record this stuff. You know, make both players, you know, keep track of this stuff together, and then they can both compare notes. And if it lines up, then there you go. But it's other than that, I think that most of this is fairly accurate. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that. And most of it's just like a matter of opinion. Like, I'm not entirely sure I prefer the team draft list from 2016. I know a lot of people do because the teams feel more complete. But this edition of Blood Bowl is about making choices, is trying to make you make more choices in team creation. So that's kind of the consequence of that.
Yeah, I agree.
There are things that you can implement to make auditing teams easier. You know. Other than that, I think this is fairly, you know, accurate.
Yeah, I feel like this is how Blood Bowl will be moving forward. I feel like it's gonna have that dedicated core of players who played before, but we're gonna see a huge crop of people new, and it'll be based off of, you know, how you build your Blood Bowl community. That's really going to dictate how much you enjoy playing Blood Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to do a quick step and talk about some of the things I noticed in this league, and ironically enough, some things I think, like I said before, parallel with Blood Bowl as a whole. Most importantly, the art of the one-turn touchdown.
Yeah, this is this is a big thing that gets talked about a lot. So maybe we should talk about this.
So, I'll start off simply. I played the league. One of the two ways I lost was a one-turn touchdown strategy from the Chaos Renegades. I actually did some research on this, as Ayli did, because we want to talk about this, but we also, you know, we didn't just want to talk about, you know, hack phlegm or just throw teammate, because they're all very well-known one-turn touchdown strategies. As it turns out, so long as you have a player that can move 9 spaces, you can, depending on your opponent's defensive strategy, do a one-turn touchdown with teams like the Norse and the Chaos Dwarves. Obviously, it's not as safe as just throwing a 11 movement gutter runner or hack phlegm down the line, but it can still work. And in fact, I'm going to point to a article written by a man named Rob Elliott, who goes into detail on how you can do one-turn touchdowns with teams so long as you have someone with 9 movement. And I'll post that up in the description. I'll also show a couple of slides with it. But the strategy for Blood Bowl now seems to revolve around making the play that your opponent cannot react to. And the play that your opponent cannot react to is the one-turn touchdown. Throw teammate. I guess the perceived throw teammate, that was kind of like a meme. You know, you throw your dude down the line as a last-ditch effort to get him to score. But now it
might be one of the best ways to score now.
It might be one of the best ways to score.
In fact, it might actually just be the best way to score now, because there is something to be said in this edition now about picking your team for your league based upon access to throw teammate. And this is something that also Joe Manji talked about a little bit, and I should clarify. I actually messed up his credentials. It's not that he won the NAF championship. It's that he has won Euro Bowl 6 times with England, and then he won the Blood Bowl World Cup once.
So he's
Very
got some
good player
experience.
still. Different set of credentials. Still an incredible player. And one of the things that he talked about in this tournament was he was contrasting this with the idea of the 8-turn grind, which is really what, playing defense was about. That's what Blood Bowl was about, was the 8-turn grind. The 8-turn grind. And in the UK Team Championship, when this was published, he discussed how he went in the first 5 rounds, so 20 games total played, because it's a team event. In 20 games, 7 one-turn touchdowns were conceded. That is almost 50%. Like that is a huge number of one-turn touchdowns across 20 games.
Did they say what those sources were?
I don't know what they were. I know he was playing Dark Elves because he believed that to be the best, like, defensive team positioning wise. And the thing that he talks about is, like, and we'll get into this later, is like how the 8-turn grind is not necessarily a thing anymore. And then he says that he, just by himself, should have conceded 1 in each of the 4 games, but twice the opponent had misplayed but got all the dice and left them a square short. So that could have been 9 if they had played correctly across 20 games.
Yeah. It'd be really important to know what those sources are, because, like, generally when you're doing I'm guessing they're talking about the block stack that you make to do a one-turn touchdown.
I'm not sure if this is block stack versus throw teammate, but what's important here is that in both of these instances, and what really makes throw teammate so good, or like one-turn access in general, I guess we should expand this to say there's something to be said about picking your team for a league based upon one-turn touchdown access.
Yeah, well, we now have players that are built to be thrown, and we have big guys who are built to throw them.
I mean, the big guy skills didn't really change that much, and neither did the stunty player skills. So, like, they were always there. The thing that's changed it is that you can now score way more consistently because you can bank your rerolls for one turn.
Exactly. You can use multiple rerolls. So, I mean, it's
sorry.
like, yeah, you have one turn, you have 3 rerolls. Would you give up 2 of those rerolls for a touchdown? And I think most coaches would say yes.
Oh,
Especially,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, you'll use that in the grind anyway. Why not just use it for a play and then just be defensive from there?
Exactly. The other thing to note is that this was not a tournament with star players. None of this is Hackflim running around. None of this is Deep Root, Strong Branch. None of it. This is teams with skills.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And maybe his experience is an outlier, like what his team's experience is an outlier, but I think, but this is a sentiment that I keep seeing echoed a lot, is like the one-turn touchdown, is so prevalent now. And like this was a big thing that I noticed immediately when I was like playing Black Orcs, was the best play was to bank my rerolls for a one-turn touchdown and then receive the ball and then just start like mauling my opponent's face. I mean, no matter how you do it. But it was just like ridiculous to me to see it like on paper. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that this is just becoming the norm, is that you just have these teams that are so capable of one-turning based with like multiple rerolls, and then like anybody who has access to throw teammate or movement 9, any team like that now can one-turn. And with a few skills, other teams can now too. Like a Valkyrie with sprint can one-turn.
Yeah. You just need, like I said, movement 9. However you can get it.
Now, granted, that part of that I think comes down to like having to roll a couple GFIs in that setup, but like, so if you have sprint, you're kind of like cheating it, not quite getting it, but it's not impossible anymore. Like
I said, there's ways to build your team, and with the multiple rerolls, you can get it to work.
Yeah.
I want to see. Like maybe I'll even try to see if I can do this mathematically. How throw teammate changes statistic wise now that you can re-roll different parts of the throw teammate skill from landing to a successful throw, like all of that, because
Yeah.
I want to know. It's more of just like I want to know if this will become just part of the game. Like throw teammate is now a good strategy for the teams that can do it. And now there is, another crop of teams that have a different version of one-turn strats. Or if we're going to run into a huge issue where everyone's playing teams with one-turn strats. Again, like, are we dealing with an arms race of just like sooner or later we're going to run into the Blood Bowl matches where the score is out of control, where you add both the touchdown numbers up and it comes with a 2-digit number, that kind of thing.
Well, okay, maybe, but it's also true that for a lot of these teams, you're blowing your rerolls on doing it once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like especially like going back to throw teammate, it's like you. The thing that makes it consistent is being able to use a resource multiple times a turn, but that resource is depleted. So, outside of like high tier games of like Underworld Denizens, Skaven, and Wood Elves, stuff like that, I don't think we're gonna see that. But we were already seeing, these crazy, like, I mean, the highest scoring game I ever played in was like 5-3, Wood Elves v Skaven.
Mm-hmm.
Every like that game took forever because it was on Blood Bowl 2 and you had to watch all the stupid animations. But no, it was like we like by the end of the first half, the score was like 4-3. It was ridiculous. But that was already possible, is what I'm saying here. So in that regard, I don't think we're going to see that, but I think we are going to see a lot more one turns at lower TVs.
I think the meta is going to switch to, or rather already has switched to, teams that have a one-turn touchdown capability. Not that they'll do it, but they at least have to have the option to at some point in their drive. But also teams that have the defensive capability to go against it. And then it all really comes down to defensive setups, your roles, and player skills.
Well, but here's the thing: is like you only have 11 players. Defending against a one turn is not easy.
Yeah.
Like because the thing is that it takes enough players to do it well that you're giving up the line of scrimmage. Like this is this is kind of a I forget what the word is. It's very much a pick your poison thing. Because if you want to defend against the one turn, you have to give the line of scrimmage. And I don't think one turn I wonder if we're going to hit a point where one turns are, or if we actually already have, where the one turn touchdown is not a turn 8 play anymore.
If it's not a turn 8 play, what do you think then?
I think that I'm saying it's not just a turn 8 play. Like it could be a turn 6 thing where it's like, well, now there's only 3 turns left in the drive. Do I protect against the one turn, give up the line of scrimmage, and just let them walk up to me? Or do I play on the line and they just say, cool, one turn? It's like you don't have a lot of agency against that. I mean, there are things you can do. You can put a few more players in the back and try to just like cloud it and just hope that they land in a tackle zone so that you at least like force them to roll more dice. Or, they bean one of your players with the goblin against the throw teammate versions. Against the other ones, you don't have a choice. Against a running play, you just have to position so they don't get to do the chain pushes. But even then, you're still in a ridiculously rough spot.
Yeah. It would really suck to see defensive setups, and I don't think this is actually happening, to see defensive setups turn into just advanced versions of the victory stance, where you have all your dudes at the very back trying to defend against the possibility of a one-turn touchdown, or rather just keeping your dudes safe from harm, or the ones that you care about safe from harm.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to turn into that. I just feel like the ball is in the court of the defensive setup now. Can we find defensive ways against the one turn, or do we just allow the chance of a one-turn touchdown to stay prevalent? Because it's still pretty risky even with multiple rerolls. But we'll see.
I don't know if it's risky anymore. I think it's much more consistent. Like, it has to be if this is happening this often.
It has to be if we're seeing it in top-tier play.
And then, I mean, part of this is hack flim, too. Like, part of this, and this is a different issue altogether, is the impact that star players are having, where it does feel like there are two different games of Blood Bowl. Actually, there is one that has star players, and that's basically, just a bunch of nonsense that happens to be in the framework of Blood Bowl. And the other one, which is actually Blood Bowl, which is no star players at all. Like Hackflim, the new Norse guy who throws barrels at people is kind of crazy. Griff, that stuff. There are also two very different games of Blood Bowl at play here.
There are,
especially if you're in the tournament scene. But the other thing that's going on here, and basically the point of all that is that Hackflim contributes a shit ton to this one-turn issue. And then the other star players just contribute to like what feels like a very crazy game of, a game that's not really Blood Bowl, but is definitely in Blood Bowl's framework.
They do change the teams around. It does turn into, I have a team, or rather, I have minions in my MOBA. Of here are my champions. Here are my minions to help those champions. Because I've seen like plenty of posts where it's just like, I went to this Blood Bowl league. I built my team around being able to recruit Griff or recruit Deeproot or something of that caliber, especially with like stunty teams, and like, hey, look, he's carrying my entire team, without a doubt. Yeah, so
and that isn't like, there's something to be said about that play. So if that's what you do, that's what you like, then enjoy it. But it's all there's also something to be said about the effect that it's having on the game. But now what I want is a Rumbelow sheepskin miniature, but it's Sejuani instead.
Oh my goodness. Please, no more League of Legends. I already made one MOBA reference. I don't want this game to turn into a MOBA. So
Blood Bowl MOBA? I don't know. I kind of want to see that now. Of like, instead, it's got all the lanes set up, but instead you have to try to navigate the ball through this thing and through towers. I don't know, that could be kind of fun. Instead of trying to break the nexus, you have to run and touch it.
Oh no. I know you can't see it, but my hands are cupped into my head because somewhere someone has tried it.
But the other thing here about multiple rerolls is that for teams that are not playing for one turns, is the drives are still faster. And this is where I'm going to make the claim that I'm going to go back on the claim that I have said over and over again. I have said forever that the 8-turn grind is not dead. The more I play the edition, the more I think, yes, the 8-turn grind is dead. I think defense, that like this game, the pace of the game is not the same anymore because you have multiple rerolls a turn.
Now, for those who aren't privy, like when you say 8-turn grind, you mean scoring a touchdown on turn 8 or around turn 8?
Yes.
Keeping the drive alive for that long.
What the offense, like generally speaking, you sit and you stall outside of, the end zone for as long as you can to farm injuries, to farm advantage, to just because you don't want to give your opponent the time. You don't want to give them time for their knockouts to wake up, stuff like that. Which is why, like, on Amazons, like, what you'll sometimes see is if the kick is close, they used to just, like, you would reach the end zone on, like, turn 4 if you were just rolling your opponent over with guard. And you're like, cool, I'm going to sit here for 4 turns and to keep beating the crap out of your team to farm up injuries. I don't think that this is viable anymore. I think that, and this has happened a few too many times to me at this point where, and maybe I'm just bad at offense, but where, because my opponent had multiple rerolls, they were able to break away and sack the ball carrier on the line. And it's just like, oh shit. Like, that would never have happened if they didn't have 2 rerolls for it. But because they banked their rerolls for that, they can do it. So what you now have is, I think it's closer to a 6-turn grind. 7 is great. I think 6 is probably the sweet spot. But the game plays faster now because the defense has options against not throw teammate to make longer reaching plays to stop the ball. And it's very hard to recover from that. And I think this also ends up pushing more people towards one-turning then. Because, well, if the defense can use multiple reels to sack the ball carrier, what's the best thing I can do? Score in 1 turn.
Make the play that they can't react to.
Right. And I'm not saying that there's like this big grand feedback loop in Blood Bowl. No, this is not one of those games by any means. Going back to what you said, if it was a MOBA, then it absolutely would be. But, joke about it as we may, we're not in MOBA territory. We are in a point where I think multiple rerolls are the foundation of the game now. I think multiple rerolls in a turn has changed so much that if by and large this is still Blood Bowl, things don't feel right to some people.
Or rather, that they at least feel different, but they may not feel wrong, but they certainly feel different.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens when we go forward. Well, that is, for lack of a better term, the state of the game as it is to at least 2 randos that you hear listening to online in the background.
As briefly as we can.
Quite literally. We thank all of you who stuck around for this long. Congrats to you. And since I am a gracious host, one of our online leagues is hopefully after the unveiling of this episode, 1 game away from completing our tournament for our Chill League. So I cordially invite any and all to join us for the next season of our Chill League. It's essentially just, as it is, just a very cordial league where there isn't a whole lot of governance. It's just, play your games when you can.
It's more like an extended meet and greet.
Yeah.
In a suit, in a trench coat that says Blood Bowl on big letters in the back.
It's all done in Blood Bowl too, so older rules set, but it's the quickest way we can do it so we can match up times because we have players from quite literally around the globe at points. Yeah. So like I said, cordially invite you to that. Also, you can join our Discord to see what we're up to and what other Blood Bowl shenanigans we'll get up to. It is, at the time of this video, turning into the warmer months, so more stuff to be had. I want to thank Keyframe, our editor. I want to thank the Blood Bowl community for having all of our cool tabletop assets as before. And we will see you guys next time. It's we'll see how Blood Bowl develops in the year of our Lord 2022.
In the year of Nuffle.
The year of Nuffle.
The year of Nuffle.
The year of ball.
I guess the last thing to emphasize once again is we are 2 league players looking at what tournament players are saying and said we should probably say that our perspective, like us as league players, should weigh in on what they are saying too, like weigh in on the same topic. We do not claim to be sages of the game. We don't claim to be necessarily even correct in the sense of we don't think that a disagreement would be totally invalid. I think that there is a wide range of beliefs on this, and we felt like we should weigh in. So agree, disagree, talk about it. I think that this is something we should talk about in this game right now because we've had the time now.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, another thing, if you guys give us your opinion on what you think the state of the game is.
If you think we're wrong, please tell us.
Yeah.
We love
you've heard
this
us
kind of
ramble.
thing.
You've heard us ramble for an hour. I cordially also invite you to just tell us how much we are wrong and make that bitch 3 paragraphs if you need be, because I want to talk about this more with other people. So, yeah.
No, like do it.
Do it.
Frankly, Blood Bowl theory is something I love. I have like Keyframe and I have bantered, or rather, I guess he's listened to me banter for like 40 minutes straight about a concept in Blood Bowl theory, and he was like, "Oh."
Quick, Keyframe, play a clip on Ayli's banter.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore.
At this point, we're just like rambling now. We've gone too long.
It's gone too long. Well, thank you again. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your support. This channel would not be here without you. Or rather, it would be, because Ayli and I literally cannot stop talking about this game.
Yes, it would be, but there would be much less people listening to it. So thank you.
Yeah.
But it would still be here regardless.
All right. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the pitch next time.